Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Live at 5. This is a show that I do on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on my main channel where usually, I'd maybe talk about the news. Yesterday, I had a special guest on. Today, we're going to do something a little different. Today is the kind of return of Spy Stream. Okay, it's not really a Spy Stream in that we are not watching a live presentation, because the presentation that we're going to watch today was done yesterday during the stream, and I couldn't do Spy Stream yesterday because I had a guest on the channel and I didn't want to cancel the guest, but that's okay. We can pretend that it's live, and we're going to treat this as though it's a real live Spy Stream, because the way it's going to feel just like Spy Stream. What it really is so every Friday, so I do stream on my main channel on Sunday through Thursday, but then on Friday, we go over to my second channel, Actively Unwoke. And on Actively Unwoke, we have Happy Hour. And Happy Hour is a time where we watch a woke training or a presentation, and it could be a new presentation, it could be an older presentation. And I drink some beer and we talk about it. And so we're kind of doing a hump day happy hour / kind of spy stream, because Patrice is correct. We really did spy to get this stream. Or more aptly, Patrice spied. So Patrice is the reason that we have the stream that we have today, because I couldn't do this yesterday. So Patrice volunteered in my stead to watch and record this session from Monroe Community College in Michigan. And we had just a live Zoom link. We didn't really have much context for it. And Monroe Community College held a discussion about what is critical race theory, a panel discussion. And it was with the director of enrollment management and a professor of history and additional panelists to be announced. And so Patrice took one for the team yesterday, and she spied on the stream and she recorded it for us. And so we are going to be watching Patrice's recorded stream, and we're going to pretend it's real, because we're going to pretend it's Spy Stream. Now, I want to let you know, so I do actually have another spy. I have another spy who shall remain nameless. So I don't know if he wants me revealing his name, but he has been putting together a laundry list of trainings lately. I have a whole bunch of live trainings from I just got the spreadsheet like an hour ago, that we will be doing more spy streams, live spy streams coming up. And so I want you to know that is something that is going to be happening. Spy Stream is the best. Today we're just doing it one day late. Incognito says Joshua was right. Trudeau rescinded the Emergency Act. Yay! Yay! Canada is rising again. He rescinded the Emergency Act? Really? That is wonderful news. Yay to Canada for that. And yay to Joshua, who predicted that on last night's stream. Well, guys, we are going to jump into the presentation, and I do actually have some beer. I did go to the beer store, and I have picked up some beer. But I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow, if you head over to Actively Unwoke and you go to the live events section, you're going to have to scroll a little bit because I haven't updated the page and I need to. But tomorrow, I will be doing a webinar at 7 p.m. at night, just an introduction to critical race theory. And this is a totally free event, and it's something that anyone can sign up for. If you have friends and family that need to know what critical race theory is, this is going to be a great introduction. If you aren't as familiar and brushed up on critical race theory as you should be, this webinar is going to help you out. That is going live tomorrow at 7 p.m. I have pinned the link to sign up for this webinar to the top of the chat. Make sure you sign up yourself. Make sure you passed it on for your friends and family. I purposefully did it at night so more people could attend live. It's going to be a layman's introduction to what is critical race theory when it comes to the real world. I don't do what James Lindsay does. I don't go into all the Marxist philosophy. How that guy has not driven himself absolutely insane is beyond me. But what I do is I talk about critical race theory from a very highly practical perspective of what is going on in the world today. How is this going to show up in your real life, in your organizations, in your schools? What do you need to watch out for? How can you identify it? How can you fight back? So this is going to be an introduction to that, and I will be showing videos and examples, and I will be able to answer your questions to the very best of my ability. So that will be available. That will be live tomorrow at 7 p.m. And then the recording will go on Actively Unwoke right after that. So make sure you sign up for that. And also, of course, this webinar is brought to you by My Locals Community. My Locals Community is the best locals community on all of locals. I have spent 8 hours this week on private Zooms with my locals community that are not recorded, that are not for public consumption, that are not for content creation, that are not for clout. They are private calls where we all get together to talk about life and what is going on in the world and what we can do about it. 8 hours. I spent 4 hours on Monday night, and I just spent another 4 hours today. What other creator on locals is doing that? I mean, come on. Really, there are no other creators on locals that are spending 6 to 8 hours a week on private Zoom calls with their I'm just going to say it right now. I fully am committed that I have the most involvement on my locals community than any other creator on locals. I would challenge any creator to beat me on that. And the way you get access to those private Zoom calls and much more is you become a supporter in the community. That is for the bargain price of $5 a month. You can also get it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift, and that unlocks the features as well. And when you become a supporter in my locals community, you not only get access to the best community in all of locals, but you do unlock all the features of the site. You get the 2 Zoom calls, you get our book clubs, you get our crafting bitches, and you just get to hang with the best people in locals. I mean, come on. It's like the only same place on the internet. There are no trolls. We do missions. We play psychological games on our enemies. We come up with strategies. We're forming an unwoke army. We are doing all sorts of stuff in my locals that, trust me, like if you like this stuff, you want to be a part of it. It like takes it all to the next level. All right. Well, we are gonna get ready for our presentation. Let me make sure I have the right screen. But before we get into the presentation, I need a beer. So we're going to treat this as Hump Day Happy Hour. If you're drinking a drink of any sort, let us know in the chat what you're drinking. Of course, while you're there, make sure you mount that like button for me. I'm streaming right now on Odyssey. I'm streaming right now on Rockfin, and I'm even streaming on Rumble. I started streaming on Rumble just for you guys. So we're going to pick out a beer before we get started. Now, I did just go to the beer store and I want to show you guys what I have. This is what we do on happy hour. And I've got some sours today, and I think I've got a stout as well. So I have a Slurpee sour ale, and this is from Pipe Brewing in New Hampshire. So I kind of like sours sometimes because they can be fruity, and that's really nice. Deborah has a vodka tonic. That's a good drink to have. Let's see. I've got this beer I bought because I liked the can. I thought it was a pretty can, but it is called Colors. It is a raspberry and passion fruit sour. So that sounds really good. And then we have this beer, which is this beer. I have a pretzel beer. It's literally brewed with pretzels. It says on the can, it says malt beverage with passion fruit, guava, natural flavors, batch brewed with Snyder's of Hanover mini pretzels. So this is a beer that is actually made from pretzels. And then the last one that I have is Liquid Therapy. It's called Weekend at Berries, and it is a stout with peanut butter flavors. So that's our selection today. I do not anticipate drinking all the beer on today's stream, but I think to start, I would like to drink the pretty can beer. That's what we're going to call this. Colors, I would like a raspberry and passion fruit sour, please. I think that would be a great place to start. And the reason I'm starting there is because I think it's going to be lighter and fruity. People are saying pretzel beer. Okay, I'm going to make you guys a deal. I'm going to drink the fruity beer first. And then if I get to the second beer, I'll drink the pretzel beer. Okay? Okay? Because like the fruity beer is going to be lighter than the pretzel beer, I think. Probably. So that's the way we're going to roll. We're going to go fruity beer first. Okay. I bet it's going to be pretty when I pour it too. And then once the beer is poured, we're going to get into our spy stream happy hour hump day presentation. All right. Let's see. It's pink. Oh, look at how pretty it is. Beer can be pretty too. Look at how beautiful that is. Oh, it looks so nice. Like a fruit punch. I just need a little umbrella. It'd be like at the beach. All right, everyone. Cheers. Happy Wednesday. We've made it through half of the week. Let me see. Oh, it smells so good. It smells so good. Yep, that's a good beer. Brent says in the chat, Carlin, you should probably have quite a few beers to deal with your sore ass. For those of you who did not tune into Nothing Remotely Controversial last night, literally 10 minutes before I went live on Nothing Remotely Controversial last night, I fell down the stairs. And I swear to you, I have an indent of one of my stairs on my ass right now. It hurts so bad. I cannot even tell you. It's so swollen. It's so purple. You can literally see the indent of the stair on my ass where I fell. So that was a fun thing. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys before we get started. So do you guys know, this is separate from the stream today, did you guys know that that John Oliver reaction video that I did on Monday, I don't know how many people were here for the John Oliver reaction stream. So we did the stream and it immediately got a copyright notice. HBO was like, no, and they tried to take it down. And so I've been fighting with YouTube for the past 2 days on that copyright thing. And so the first thing I did was I appealed, and I was like, so this John Oliver reaction video is like an obvious fair use thing. It's obvious fair use. And so I appealed for both my stream and for the clip that I made. I was like, this is obvious fair use. Let the copyright restriction go, essentially. And then YouTube came back and said, nope, not fair use at all. Still copyright violation. And so then I appealed again. And let me tell you guys the tactic I used to appeal this John Oliver takedown bullshit is I said that when HBO produced John Oliver's show, it was a work of fiction meant for entertainment value, and I fundamentally transformed the work by taking it from a work of fiction meant for entertainment to creating an educational nonfiction video. And as soon as I said that the John Oliver presentation against the anti-CRT movement was a work of fiction meant for entertainment, and I fundamentally transformed it into nonfiction for educational value, copyright claim was released. So that's how I won. That's how I won that copyright claim, is I pointed out that John Oliver is a work of fiction, and I took it and used it for important life lessons. All right. That's what I've been up to today. All right, guys, let's dig into this stream. Again, we're just going to pretend that this is live on the internet, because it kind of was. Patrice was so nice. She even got the chat for us. You guys are going to see. Okay, Chrome tab, share audio. This is the one. Look, Patrice recorded the chat. So we're going to get both stream and chat, which is pretty great. All right, who's ready for kind of spy stream, happy hour, hump day? Let me know by typing in the chat that you're ready to go. And of course, mounting the like button and doing all of the things that we do. Oh, the chat's, Grandma Nay's got the chat going over on Odyssey. Excellent. Excellent work, Grandma Nay. All right, guys, let me know, as always, if the sound is okay and we can get started. And I have no idea what I'm walking into.
It was posted on the NAACP website and also on the McPan website. So there should be quite a few.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this guy wearing a mask.
I was able to reach out to wearing a mask in his office. NAACP branches in the state too. The ones I could find email addresses for.
Good.
All right, they're not starting yet. Maybe we fast forward.
Then from an interview with Questlove on one of the TV news shows I watched. So it was on for free on ABC this past week. I recorded it. It's available on Hulu with no commercials, and it is so interesting.
They talking it about anything important? They chit chatting.
Yes.
Seems like they're just chit chatting. I think someone posted a comment that actually starts at 4 minutes. Okay, almost there. About 4 minutes to start, Patrice says. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Patrice. Okay. This meeting is now being recorded. Oh, I'm getting an ad. Oh, I'm getting an ad on my own damn channel. No.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera.
I should have turned off ads. Well, that's okay. I get the ad revenue from my channel. We'll all manage.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It looks like we have
We don't have the
25
chat.
participants this evening.
That's all right.
I see some familiar faces, so welcome. And our theme, our discussion, our HRC this evening is what is critical race theory? And you're going to hear, you may have heard a lot of controversy about this issue. So tonight we hope to dispel the myths and really get a better understanding as to really what critical race theory is. As always, we're going to encourage dialogue, open dialogue. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions when we go into a final session and just share your thoughts on critical race theory. So as normal with CREED, we always have our working agreements and our land acknowledgement.
Land acknowledgement, bingo.
We're going to go through that in a minute. And then also, I just want to talk about.
We're not really technically playing bingo today. I guess we can play
moderator
bingo.
this evening, Alan Russell. His first name is William, but he prefers Alan.
Here, I'll put up. I'll put the bingo link in the chat if you've never played bingo before.
So our guest panelists are this evening, Ms. Tracy Perry.
There's the bingo link.
She's relatively new to the Monroe Community College family. She's the Director of Enrollment Management. So welcome, Tracy. And we have Ms. Robin West-Smith, who's a sociology adjunct professor at the college. So welcome, ladies. So with that said, I'm going to turn over to Amy Zarin, who's going to talk about our working agreements.
I want to click
Good evening, everybody. So our working agreements are really just to keep us all on the same page as we work through different topics. So we have them on the screen, but I'm just going to read them as well. So our working agreements, first, to help to minimize background noise, please remain muted the entire time. One of our speakers or hosts will ask you to unmute when the time comes. Please keep your camera on whenever possible. This really helps to enhance group connection, especially when you're addressing the presenter. I'm the exception right now because I am currently in my car, so I apologize for that. While on camera, minimize other work if at all possible, electronics, eating, just to respect all other participants. It is acceptable and, it's kind of expected to be a little bit uncomfortable at times, and that's okay. We acknowledge that racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, and other forms of discrimination and oppression exist. Our primary commitment is to learn from each other.
Wait. That's actually in their working agreement? Okay. Working agreements are I actually don't mind working agreements for meetings and like group things like this, but usually they don't include things like we acknowledge that racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, and other forms of discrimination and oppression exist. That's usually not something that's in a working agreement that's actually at a productive organization. And remember, this is a community college. This is a taxpayer-funded college. This is a community college. So for a community college to be integrating into their action, just like their general working meetings, we acknowledge that racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, and other forms of discrimination and oppression exist. That tells you a lot about what it's going to be like at this community college.
Respectful manner. We will listen to each other and not talk at each other. We will not demean, devalue, or put down people for their experiences, lack of experiences, or difference in interpretation of those experiences. We will trust that people are always doing the best they can, and we will respectfully challenge ideas and not the person.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And now we'll have our land acknowledgement read by Laura.
Land acknowledgement.
These lands are occupied lands that are sometimes called Southeast Michigan. They're ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Adirondack or Neutral Wyandot Nation and the Anishinaabe, which include the Three Fires Council of Ojibwe, Ottawa, the Potawatomi or Potawatomi peoples, as well as the Sauk, Meskwakasina, Fox, Mescouton, and Miami tribes. Respect and honor are given to all their elders, past and present.
I'm actually really impressed at their pronunciation.
Thank you.
I bet there was a whole workshop on the pronunciation.
Okay, so before I hand it over to William, just want to give a little bit of background. because this whole issue of critical race theory has been really has become very visible.
Thank God.
In the last, I'd say 18 to 24 months. And there's a lot of misconception as to really what it is. So I always like to research subject matter. So I did a little research online. I just want to read a couple sentences before I turn it over to William and the panelists. This was on a website, a news website, and it says, for example, lawmakers in Tennessee and Idaho have banned its teaching critical race theory from their public schools curriculum, while parents in Texas are opposing a school district's efforts to combat racism with lessons in cultural awareness, seen by some as critical race theory. It's a concept that has been around for decades and that seeks to understand and address inequality and racism in the US. The term also has been politicized and been attacked by its critics as Marxist ideology. That's a threat to the American way of life. I was actually in a school environment where one of the attendees, who was a parent, actually said that it was racism. Critical racism theory recognizes that systemic racism
wait.
American
Holy
society.
shit. Did anyone hear what she just said? Did anyone hear what she just said? What Freudian slip did she just make in the chat? I'm looking at the chat. I know there's a delay. I'm going to clip just that wonderful, beautiful Freudian slip. What was it, chat? I know you caught it. Yes, critical racism theory. Yes, critical racism theory. Let's just listen to that again. You know what I need to do? I need to get like one of those things where like I can just do sound effects like randomly, like I hit a button and it says critical racism theory. That's what I need. I need someone to help me set that up on my stream. Let's just listen to that glorious moment again.
Has been politicized and been attacked by its critics as Marxist ideology. That's a threat to the American way of life. I was actually in a school environment where one of the attendees, who was a parent, actually said that it was racism.
It is racism.
Critical racism theory recognizes
you just said it was
racism is a part of American society and challenges the beliefs that allow it to flourish. So with that, I just want to give you just a brief background as to what critical race theory is. And now I will turn it over to William and the panelists. I think you're muted.
I know, this is my first Zoom.
That's okay.
Really?
We've all been there, William. I mean,
really?
I'm sticking to it. Okay. No. All right. Welcome everyone, and thank you for participating.
Okay. Who wants to define critical race theory? I literally almost said critical racism theory. Who wants to define critical race theory in the chat? Just so we all have a working, every single person, guys, I'm serious about this. So every single one of you, if you're fighting back against the woke, you need to be able to define critical race theory succinctly, on demand, anytime anyone asks you, because you will get asked this question and you need to know how to define it. And there are a couple different definitions that I use that I can recite off the top of my head, and everyone needs to be making an effort in order to memorize a definition. And I'm going to give you a one-sentence definition. One sentence that everyone can memorize, because people make excuses about this all the time. I even see people in my chat making excuses about this sometimes. They're like critical race theory is too hard to define. No, it's not. It's not. Yes, Patrice got it. That is a wonderful definition. The assumption that racism occurs in every interaction. Yes, that is absolutely a workable definition of critical race theory. This is important, guys, because you know what they do? They find the one person who doesn't know how to define critical race theory, and they ask them to define critical race theory, and then the person goes, and then that's the person they play on the news over and over and over again. So my definition of critical race theory is that critical race theory is an ideology that was founded in academia in the 1970s that says racism exists everywhere, in every person, in everything, in every interaction, and that the job of the critical race theorist is to explore how, not if, how racism occurs in every circumstance. But James Lindsay gives an even shorter definition where he says that critical race theory is the fundamental organizing principle of society. I'm seeing some other definitions come in. M169 says the belief that racism is present everywhere. That is a great definition. CRT says racism happens all the time and that CRT determines to find it. Exactly. The belief that racism is the organizing principle of society. Stephen has been listening to James Lindsay. So, yep, the assumption that any and all policy has to do with race. Also, the assumption that any or all racial disparities in terms of outcomes are the result of racism. All of those are great definitions. I'm not going to say that my definition is any better or worse. I just want people to be able to memorize a definition that you can use to define critical race theory at any given time. All right, let's keep going.
We'll have a breakout session where there'll be discussion between all the individuals that are involved and the participants that are involved tonight. So this is directed to either of our panelists. Tell us in a few words what critical race theory is and what it is not.
Well, Tracy doesn't mind. I'd like to go and answer this question because I literally just had to answer this question twice for my 2 lectures in the past few days.
I bet that's the history professor.
We are just about to embark on race and ethnicity in our principles of sociology class. And because I do teach a majority white school, teach at a majority white school with a majority white students in rural Michigan, I told them I needed them to truly understand what CRT is and what is not in comparison to what we're doing today. And so I had them look in their index in their sociology book. I said, do you see critical race theory in your index? So they all went to their index. They said, no, we don't see it. I said, okay, go back to the race and ethnicity chapter. Look at all the key terms in the race and ethnicity chapter. Do you see critical race theory in the index, in the key terms? They checked, they said, no. I said, okay, so CRT is not taught in K through 12. Contrary to anything you hear.
Wait. She asked, am I hearing this correctly? That this professor who teaches at a community college level told her students to go look in the index of a book for the term critical race theory. And when they couldn't find it in the index of one book, she used that as proof that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 education. That's considered proof at the collegiate level now that a term is not in use in one single book, a book that she probably cherry-picked for that express purpose. Did I just hear that correctly? I'm sorry. We're going to rewind. We know when SpyStream is live, we can't rewind, but when it's recorded, we can rewind and make sure we heard nonsense correctly.
Twice for my 2 lectures in the past few days.
Yeah, ipso facto.
We are just about to embark on race and ethnicity in our principles of sociology class.
Okay. And so she's not even talking about an education class. She's not a teacher or educator. She's talking about a principles of sociology class.
Because I do teach a majority white school, teach at a majority white school with a majority white students in rural Michigan, I told them I needed them to truly understand what CRT is and what is not in comparison to what we're doing today. And so I had them look in their index in their sociology book.
Okay.
I said,
wait, so they're looking again. I just want to really emphasize this woman is a college professor, technically, I guess. She had them in the Principles of Sociology class. Look in the index of the Introduction to Sociology textbook. And then let's hear what happened.
Do you see critical race theory in your index? So they all went to their index. They said, no, we don't see it. I said, okay, go back to the race and ethnicity chapter. Look at all the key terms in the race and ethnicity chapter. Do you see critical race theory in the index, in the key terms? They checked, They said, no. I said, okay. So CRT is not taught in K through 12.
That doesn't make any flipping sense. How is intro to sociology at a community college related to what is taught in K through 12 education in every school across the country? This woman should not be teaching anything. If this woman does not understand that you cannot assess what is taught in K through 12 education based on the glossary of an intro to sociology textbook, are you kidding me? Emphasize, thank you for the laughing dog super sticker. I appreciate it. What the hell? That is the stupidest thing that I've heard all day. But I have a feeling it's going to get worse.
Contrary to anything you hear, CRT is taught in college law classes. You're in a college class, but you're not in a college law, pre-law class.
All right. I did this during the John Oliver takedown the other day, but let's just do it again. Just because I'm not going to make the assumption that all of you watched the John Oliver takedown the other day. Let's just do it again. Let's all go to Amazon right now. We're going to go to Amazon.com, the homepage, and I'm going to search critical race theory education, and let's see what we find. Ooh, there's a new one today. Oh my God. Critical Race Theory in Education, A Scholar's Journey. Foundations of Critical Race Theory in Education, Discrit, which is not only about equity, but also about disability studies and critical race theory. Critical Race Theory in Mathematics Education, A Parent's Guide to Critical Race Theory. Why is there a book called A Parent's Guide to Critical Race Theory that is obviously school-oriented because it has school materials on the cover? Critical Race Theory in Teacher Education. Handbook of Critical Race Theory in Education. Handbook of Critical Race Theory in Education. Critical Race Theory in Education. And on and on and on and on. There would be no need for a book called Critical Race Theory in Education, A Scholar's Journey, or Foundations of Critical Race Theory in Education if critical race theory wasn't taught in education. And this woman, this college professor thinks that the fact that critical race theory is not listed in the glossary of a sociology textbook is proof that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 education. I can do a search on Amazon and find evidence that critical race theory is absolutely taught in schools. There would be no need to have books about it if it wasn't taught in schools. And I apologize to everyone who has to hear me go on this rant every single time we do something like this, but, new people watch. We have to teach the same lessons. Let's get back to it.
It is taught in the pre-law program to get you to help you understand, in the law school program, to help you understand systemic and institutional.
Then why was there a book called Critical Race Theory in Math Education? Emphasize says the answer is acceleration of contradictions. Well, war is peace, freedom is slavery, that sort of thing.
Racism in the justice system, period. Anything else that you hear, that you see on TV, that you see at these school board meetings, is all, as someone that we all are very familiar with likes to say, fake news. And I wanted it to be clear because, ironically enough, this is the first time since I've been teaching this course I have had to address something like this. So that's how I have tried to explain it to my students. Tracy, did you want to add anything else?
Yes, I was introduced into critical race theory until my doctorate studies at Central Michigan University. And it's also used when teaching education type courses, because not only is it injustice in our—
Why would it be used in teaching education courses if it wasn't in education? They've literally just contradicted each other, because the first lady said it is only taught in law school. And now this lady's coming in and being like, it is also taught in education. Why would it be taught in education if it wasn't in education?
Our judicial system, but also in our educational system. And it's just based off some of the tenets of critical race, such as racism is built into American society. And if we look back at when certain institutions, such as the predominantly white institution that we both work here at, it wasn't really made for people outside of the majority system. And it's just, it's giving voice to people that aren't part of the master narrative. And it's a way to
the master narrative,
do research and just to show others what people outside of themselves experience on a day-to-day life. So
no,
it's really
that's not what it is. That's not even what it is.
Said, to address racism and the inequities that people of different color experience outside of the master narrative.
I would like so she's using the term master narrative, which I haven't actually heard before, but I think we can understand what that comes from. Master slave. That's why she's calling it the master narrative. But that's a new term I haven't heard popping up before. So I think that that's interesting that she's using it. But I mean, I guess the question I have is, how exactly does critical race theory combat inequities? Because we watch, again, we're doing Spy Stream now. We're doing like a hump day happy hour sort of thing, but we watch these trainings every single Friday on my second channel, and I never hear them talking about solutions. I have many people in the chat who come to every single happy hour I do, or most happy hours that I do. And has anyone ever heard in literally any of the happy hour presentations that we've watched, do any of them ever talk about solutions? I cannot remember one single presentation that we've been doing happy hour, like, at least for a year. I think we've done at least a year's worth of happy hours. I cannot remember one single solitary time when they have talked about solutions in any happy hour training that we've watched. And we've watched over 50 of them at this point. Deborah says the author's definition of the master narrative of American history is synonymous with the idea of whitewashing history. Just T says, oh yes, master narrative, because everyone who isn't a member of a majority system is a slave. Exactly. But I mean, my big point here is that critical race theory does not seek solutions to problems. It only seeks to complain about problems, because the goal of critical race theory is not to solve racism. The goal of critical race theory is only to get more power for the political party that they support. Thank you, Emphasize, for the other super sticker. I appreciate it.
And I agree that it's something that you do not teach in K. It's something that it's not really, like, most theories aren't taught in the K-12 system.
Exactly. Even in the
I love this. They're like, they've got a full list of like incorrect things about what critical race theory is. But the only thing that they have that critical race theory is not is like, it's not taught in K through 12. It's not. We can't see it. It's definitely not taught in K through 12. We can't see it.
College program, the Principles of Sociology course, we discuss race and ethnicity and helping them to understand that race is socially constructed. You need to judge who you are based on your socially ethnicity. Constructed.
Okay.
Right. And we have had a multi-variation of ethnicities in America, and they have been discriminated against. I also help my students understand the key words: prejudice, discrimination, and
received
racism.
The super chat.
And I tell them, unless you have money and power, you cannot be a racist. You can be.
Wait, what? Did she just say, unless you have money and power, you can't be a racist? This is going to be news. This is going to be news for every poor white person ever, because they have said for a long time that you have white privilege, even if you're a dirt poor, like, white trash living in, like, Appalachia with no running water. Did this woman really just say you cannot be a racist unless you're rich and white? Hang on. What did she say exactly?
Like most theories aren't taught in the K-12 system.
Exactly. Even in the direct college program, the principles of sociology course, we discuss race and ethnicity and helping them to understand that race is socially constructed. You need to judge who you are based on your ethnicity. Right. And we have had a multi-variation of ethnicities in America, and they have been discriminated against. I also help my students understand the key words: prejudice, discrimination, and racism. And I tell them, unless you have money and power, you cannot be a racist.
Unless you have money and power, you cannot be a racist. Hang on. You have money and power, you can't be a racist. This is at 1439. I'm clipping that shit later. You better believe it. Unless you have money or power, you can't be a racist? This is like a whole new thing now. This is a whole... Congratulations, everyone who's not rich, you can't be racist. We've ascended. Guys, this is wonderful news. This is actually really good news. If this is the direction this is going to take, this is really good news. We have ascended from racism actually being about race to racism being about class. You know, it's not perfect, but I'll take you can't be racist if you're not rich.
You can be...
It's progress.
You
progress,
can have an attitude.
I guess. Progress.
You can even sometimes take an action and be discriminatory. But you're not a racist until you get money and power. And then you make someone else feel like they are not sufficient.
She even said it again. Holy shit. This is probably one of the best things I've ever clipped. Yes, Grandma Nay, I'm happy as well. I'm happy to find out that I'm not a racist. Because I ain't rich. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not rich. Not rich at all.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that distinction. I mean, we've got people now that are afraid to even say certain things because I don't want to be called a racist. Well, and I asked them, I said, do you have some money? You got some power? Do you have any kind of superiority over me at this point in time? If not, I will say what you're doing is you're showing your maybe bigotry, your prejudice, but you have not accomplished racism yet.
She's like so doubling down on this. Holy shit. Holy shit. But she's like, you're you know, you could still be a bigot. You're just not a racist. I would really like this woman to say this like at least 3 or 4 more times in the course of this presentation. I'm just going to make a whole bunch of clips of this woman saying, if you don't have money, you're not a racist. Emphasize, can white people be racist towards other white people? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, based on our definition of racism, which is you're treating people differently based on the color of their skin, yes. Yes. Sin, I put the bingo card in the chat. You can play bingo. Sin, I will give you a bingo card. Hang on. Putting the bingo card in the chat again just for Sin. You can catch up. We did a land blessing. You can use your best judgment. I don't know if, like, okay, so under normal people definition, yes, white people can be racist towards other white people because you're treating them differently based on the color of their skin. That's normal definition. Based on critical race theory definition, though, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Apparently, if you have money, you're maybe racist towards a poor white person. I don't know. That is a good question.
That's a high bar, a very high bar.
Can we ask questions now, or is that going to be?
I just want these people to talk like all
Florence,
night.
go ahead.
So Tracy, how did your students respond when in your classroom when you had them research?
Yes, apparently poor whites are now considered to be black.
That CRT was not in the books.
Oh, that was me, Florence. That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robin. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
So well, again, keep in mind, Florence, I'm in a rural Michigan school, majority white. And in this particular class, everyone is white. I had a couple of students who looked at me like, oh my goodness, like it was the first time they'd ever heard this. I had another student who's, hoping to go to law school, pretty much shake his head. Yep, she's explaining it correctly. I also did something that I
She's
don't
not
think
explaining
any
it correctly.
teacher has ever
That is
done
not true.
before. And
She
I
is
told
not
my
explaining
students, I
it
said,
correctly.
you're lucky that I am African American because I can do this with you, and we're gonna all understand what this means.
Wait.
Whereas if someone else does this,
Is she arguing that she can teach critical race theory just because she's Black? Is this like an innate superpower that Black people have, is that they can just teach critical race theory without actually understanding what the fuck I know more about critical race theory than this woman. That has nothing to do with skin color. That has to do with the fact that I watch a lot of this stuff. But is she saying that Black people just have an innate superpower where they can just teach critical race theory just like by osmosis of their lived experience? That's probably actually exactly what she's saying. I said that as a joke, but that's actually probably seriously what she's saying.
With you, I can promise you it would be perceived totally different. I explained to them the difference between the two N words. The N word that ends with the letter A and the N word that ends with the letter ER. And as I explained it to them, I said, when you see the N word with the ER ending, you're seeing a racial slur. When you're seeing the N word with an A at the end, you're seeing a term of endearment. How
can I, as a white person, say the N word with the A at the end then? Now, keep in mind, I would never actually do that because I feel deeply uncomfortable with that word. No derivation of that word is ever coming out of my mouth, ever. But oh, Patrice is saying I need to hear her out. Okay. But did she just say, no, we're not saying that. Do not say that word in the chat. I will put anyone on a timeout that says that. We're not saying that word here. I have a deep aversion to that word. We're not saying it. But like, is she insinuating that I can say the N word as long as I say it with an A instead of an ER, and that would be considered acceptable? Did Joe Rogan say the N word with the A? And that's not good. Okay. Patrice says I need to hear her out, so I'm gonna trust Patrice's judgment.
However, I would caution all of you all standing here right now, do not say that to your Black friend if you have one, unless you have a relationship such as Dr. Dre and Eminem. When you have that kind of relationship with your Black friends, you may be able to come to that level where you can say the N word with the A on the end. But again, that is still something you want to be careful with. And I think even with Dr. Dre and Eminem, it is also their culture, the genre.
Yeah, she's giving him an N-word pass.
And, they have said,
Wait. So going back to the Joe Rogan thing, because a lot of those Joe Rogan clips were cut out of context. Like, did Joe Rogan have like an N-word level pass with the people that he was talking to when he said those things? Like, Joe Rogan wasn't just saying that word like, for joy or whatever. Is Joe Rogan considered to have an N-word pass? The best solution is never to say that word, guys. And I understand pushing the boundaries of free speech. I really do. God knows I push the boundaries of free speech more than most people do. I just think that we don't win anything by ever saying any variation of that word ever. It's too rife for problems. Just don't say the word. You are a grown adult, probably, that is capable of deciding not to say that specific word. There's no reason for it. There is no winning when that word is involved, whether it's an ER or an A, or you have an N-word pass because you've been best friends with someone since they were 6. It just makes no sense at all. It is a horrible word. We should just excise it entirely.
Them has sometimes been referred to as the blackest white boy you've ever seen. You also have to understand too that there are other terms now that are being formed to get around this. And I know one of the more recent terms that's used among some young white males is wigger. And it was so funny. The first time I heard that, I don't think they thought I knew what it meant. And I looked at the young man and I said, I do know what that means. They all kind of got quiet. But that, again, that's within the comfort of certain groups. They know that they have a relationship and they can say certain things in terms. As a matter of fact, I came across a list of slang terms that Generation Z is using right now. And I looked through the entire list, and some of the words I was expecting to see, I didn't see. Well, for the most part, there was still very, quite a few of slang terms used by Generation Z. And when we can understand their language, we can also communicate to them and help them understand some of these key principles, as they say, using their language. And so that's why I basically talk to my students in the forum and help them to understand what CRT is and what it is not. Did that answer your question, Florence?
No,
Yes.
that was not an
Robin.
answer to that
Thank
question.
you.
That was something. It wasn't an
Ms.
answer to that
Robin, Can you
question.
explain a little more the idea that you can't be racist unless you have money and power?
Yes, please
You have
explain
to-
more about that idea. Yes, please
From a
explain.
social scientist perspective, we define racist as being an individual who has some type of jurisdiction over other individuals, and based on the characteristics of those individuals, such as their race and or ethnicity, the individual who has that form of control over a group of individuals has a method of separating those individuals from other individuals. And they do it generally from the perspective of economics, social, and political. Now, that's how we explain it as social scientists.
And then
So-
too, in the theories,
She just basically, what she just said is like a really overly complicated way of saying racism equals power plus prejudice, because she was saying that you can only be racist if you have jurisdiction over individuals, which is not our definition of racism, is not a definition of racism that I will ever use, because I use the old school definition of racism, which is racism is treating people differently based on the color of their skin. Doesn't really matter what color their skin is, whether it be black or white or anything in between those two things. That's not the definition that she's using. She's using racism equals power plus prejudice.
so there's different tenets within the theory of critical race, and one is that
The theory of critical race. I love
whiteness
it.
is property. So if you have ownership, whether that's from a monetary or from a power standpoint, you can then dictate, like Robin had said, how another group feels, what type of resources that they have. As a Black American, to be racist, I would have to not allow someone to buy a home, to buy a car, to get an education, to go live in a certain neighborhood. And as a marginalized group here in America, we just don't have that type of power. So and so you don't necessarily have to have money.
Wait. Is this woman implying that Black people don't work at banks? That's literally what she's implying. She's like, Black people just don't have the power to prevent people from buying property in America. Is she insinuating that there are no Black landlords? Is she insinuating that that no Black people work at banks or lending companies? Is that what we're talking about now? Emphasize says, true story, kids got banned from game chats for using that vernacular. All of them, not just the ones using the hard R that should be that way. I, again, emphasize, you are not ever going to get me on board with using any derivation of that word ever in any circumstance. And so I think if they're using that word, they're trying to be inflammatory, and they should just stop. So I don't feel bad for them. I'm sorry. I just want to go back and listen to this woman's definition of race. Like, she literally just said that Black people don't work at banks. She's working at a college. Hang on.
And one is that whiteness is property. So if you have ownership, whether that's from a monetary or from a power standpoint, you can then dictate, like Robin had said, how another group feels, what type of resources that they have. As a Black American, to be racist, I would have to not allow someone to buy a home, to buy a car, to get an education, to go.
So are you saying that Black people don't work at banks, they don't work at car dealerships, they don't work at lenders, they don't work at credit card companies, they don't work at colleges? Because provably in this session right now, we have Black people working at colleges that could actually prevent people from getting an education. Are you saying that Black people are in no positions of power at all? Emphasize says just the ones using the hard R, not yourself. I don't care whether it was the hard R or not. If they're using any derivation of that word at all in any way, I do not feel sorry for them if they're getting banned. I don't care hard R or not hard R. I don't care. So Steven says whiteness is property. Yes. Yes. When they are using the term whiteness, what they mean is who owns the power structure. That's what they mean. It is not actually about the color of your skin. It is about who owns the power structure. This is why they consider Black or Latino or anyone who's not white like landlords. A landlord of like, if you're a landlord and you're not white, you will still be considered to have whiteness or white privilege because it is about who owns the power structure, not the color of your skin.
Go live in a certain neighborhood. And as a marginalized group here in America, we just don't have that type of power. So
you're literally saying Black people don't work at banks. So that's not true.
You don't necessarily have to have money, but to own whiteness as property, you have power to dictate how others live and what assets they are able to acquire.
Listen, emphasize, you can keep paying me money to argue with me, and that's fine. Are you saying Black kids shouldn't be able to use their vernacular? I'm saying anytime that term is used ever, it is a loaded term, and people should not be surprised when they get banned for using loaded terms. You can keep. I'm welcoming you paying me money to argue with me. I will not agree with you on this issue. I don't think there's any reason to use that term ever, no matter what the color of your skin is. I just don't. That's my position.
In addition to what Tracy said, I found it quite interesting that former President Trump has taken to calling the 3 prosecutors who happen to be people of color who are prosecuting him for investigating him for various reasons. He called them all racist at a rally that was attended to by mostly white people, with a few Black people sprinkled behind them. He's chosen
Wait. First of all, I have been to many Trump rallies, and it is not just white people with a few Black people sprinkled behind him. There are many non-white people on Trump rallies. But like, did Trump actually say that? I guess is what I'm asking, because I haven't watched any Trump rallies lately, so I truly have no idea what she's talking about. Did Trump actually say that the people prosecuting him were racist? That would be a mistake on his part if he did. That would be a stupid statement. But I'm having trouble believing that that Trump actually said that is the point. Alexis, I have a question. This video will be on your locals page in BitChute. YouTube is not going to take this video down. You don't have to worry about it. But just so you guys know, I do simultaneously stream on Odyssey, on Rockfin, and on Rumble. So if YouTube does take the video down, it'll be on one of those platforms. But YouTube isn't going to take this video down. You don't have to worry about that. I do this all the time. So this is not something I'm worried about.
Reason, because he understands to be a racist, you have to have some kind of power over someone who doesn't look like you. However, as Tracy is
That's not what you said before.
You cannot just simply say, I'm a racist. You know, if Tracy were to say, or myself, I'll use myself, I'm a professor, okay? If I decide that, okay, the student that's sitting over here in this desk reminds me of someone I knew from my past, and she happens to be white. And then I got a student over here who may be biracial or Hispanic or Muslim, and I'll say, well, okay, regardless of how you all each answer your questions on your exam, the Muslim student, the Hispanic student, you're always going to get an A. But the white student, I'm going to make you really, really prove to me. That's when I'm demonstrating some form of racism, because I have power over those students.
Wait, did she just say that she can be racist towards white students? She literally just said she can be racist towards white students. I'm sorry, I need to listen to that again.
Racial or Hispanic or Muslim, and I say, well, okay, regardless of how you all each answer your questions on your exam, the Muslim student, the Hispanic student, you're always going to get an A. But the white student, I'm going to make you really, really prove to me. That's when I'm demonstrating some form of racism because I have power over those students.
Holy
from
shit.
From the educational institution perspective.
Holy shit.
Robin, Judy Bishalis asks,
that is a goddamn miracle that a Black college professor just admitted that she can be racist towards white students. That is a fucking miracle. Yes, Julius, she is absolutely contradicting what she just said, because earlier she said that you could only be racist if you had money, like money and power. But now she's saying that because she's a college professor, that she can be racist. That is a fucking miracle, and we all need to celebrate that. I'm just saying, we need to have a moment.
You say that you have to have money and power to be a racist. Do you have to have both?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes. From a social scientist perspective. Again, I'm a social scientist, so I'm telling you this from a social scientist perspective.
Is she saying she has money?
In some institutions, you may hear some, especially in the political science arena, you may hear a different variation of it. I'm also looking at Julie's second question.
So glad we watched this.
It's interesting. Judy, I'm sorry. You say, do most white people have power? Well, that is I don't want to say misnomer, but that is the nomer or the assumed position.
Why would that be the assumed position?
Are we talking about rich white people or are we talking about poor white people? Because during slavery, even a poor white person had more power over a slave, than a slave had.
We don't live in slavery anymore.
And that was the interesting thing about that.
Yes.
Tracy, what
Roberto is asking a great question. I want to know what income is required exactly in order to be considered a racist. What is the income level that is required in order to be considered a racist or not to be considered a racist?
I think it's built.
Emphasize. There was an owned trend back in the day. Maybe I know the rules because I'm from the South. Can you respect that's our word? I do not think it is a realistic expectation. And again, emphasize, you're welcome to keep paying me money to argue with me. And I appreciate every single super chat you send because it supports the work I'm doing. And I really do appreciate it. I do not believe there is any circumstance in which any person can use any derivation of the N-word on a social media platform and have reasonable expectation that they are not going to get banned. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I think we just need to be realistic here for a second. I do not think there is any circumstance in which you can use that word on any social media platform and expect not to get banned. But I thank you for the super chat, and I appreciate you.
From an institutional standpoint, if we look at the fabric of America, and it was how it was not set up. It was primarily set up for the white male. It wasn't even set up for white women. And because of that, people weren't allowed to vote. People weren't allowed to own houses. So
Incognito says he did see a video of Trump saying prosecutors are racist. That was a stupid move. Trump shouldn't have said that. It's like sometimes Trump just makes these dumb mistakes. It's like that clip is just ripe for getting cut out of context. Like, why would you say that?
The question of what it says, what about a poor white person? Do they still can be looked at differently when it comes to a credit application, even though they might not have the same type of finances or someone of a different ethnicity, they're going to be viewed differently just because of the color of their skin. I remember recently there was a story about a Black couple that was trying to sell their home and it was way undervalued. So what they had another appraiser come in and they took out all the Black photos and they had one of their friends stand in as a homeowner, and it appraised for, I think, at least what, $20,000 more, just because, you know, it was a Black person who owned this home. So I would say that, yes, you don't necessarily, so a poor white person still has power because the systems are already built to help them stay ahead.
If that story is true,
Might we call
that's
that white privilege?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Right.
We have
listen to this guy. He's like, would you call that white privilege? Okay, listen, if that is actually true, and I'm not going to make the assumption that that story is true, but if that's actually true, that is bullshit. I'm sorry. There should be no reason why a home should be appraised for a lesser value just based on the fact that it is owned by a Black family. That would actually be an example of, you know, one could argue systemic racism, or one could argue it would be an example of a racist appraiser, because appraisals are made by people, right? Or it could be a reflection of just what the homes have sold for before. I don't know, but you could actually make an argument that that is an example of systemic racism. But the question I have is, okay, what policy do you want to change to fix that? Because if critical race theory is about finding solutions to racism, then what policy do you want to change in order to fix that?
have an exercise called the Privilege Walk. Now,
Oh, God.
Dr. Fahadeen won the Diversity Award a few years ago for doing a walk, doing the Privilege Walk as a event after school one time. I have done the Privilege Walk in my classroom, and it was the last semester that we were all still in public facing. I was looking at my evaluations, and I actually had a student comment on that walk, and that student said, you know, making us do that Privilege Walk made me uncomfortable. It made it look like you were segregating us and picking on us. And I read that and I'm thinking, why would you perceive that unless you were the one who won and you didn't want to be the one that I said would be the privileged one? And then ironically enough, what happens two and a half years later after we come out of, and went through this pandemic and everything, we have people now talking about being made uncomfortable if they have to hear, or if their student is uncomfortable, if they have to hear conversations about race and racism or critical race theory. And we had even in Indiana, the state of Indiana education system, a district in the state of Indiana.
A student doing something at a college level is not the same thing as having a student compelled to do something in K-12 education. Students, do not have a choice but to attend K-12 education. It is compulsory by the government. And so it is very different when someone does something at a collegiate level, which they are opting into, which is optional, which they are paying for, probably with student loans. It is very different circumstance then than it is when it's compulsory at the K-12 level. Emphasize says, you know the rules, and so do I. AAVE, I don't know what that is real, and I hear it every day online and off, and I'll let you know that the bumblebee that's scientifically not, that it's scientifically not supposed to fly. I'm having trouble translating their emphasize, if I'm honest, but I thank you for the super chat, and I appreciate the support.
Allow their students, their parents, to opt out of teaching Black history during Black History Month.
That's not what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is not Black history
Month. As I explained to my students, we had a week, and then we eventually got a whole month, thanks to President Gerald Ford, who was from Michigan, by the way. I said, but imagine that. Now you're being told, well, you know what, if you think talking about Black history is going to make your child uncomfortable, you can opt out.
That's not what critical race theory is.
I said, there was never need for white history, because that's all the history that was ever written. Mm-hmm. It was never written from any other.
You could teach Black history all day, every day, and still not teach critical race theory. Critical race theory is not the same thing as Black history. It is simply not. You could have classes in Black history all day, every day. You could have classes on the civil rights movement. You could have classes on slavery. You could have classes on African history. You could have classes about every component of Black history in the history of ever. And you could still teach all of those things without teaching one single solitary word of critical race theory. This woman claims to understand what critical race theory is, and yet she's conflating it with all history. There was a time when we were able to teach history in this country without teaching critical race ethnic theory.
Other perspective, but white male property owners, even the early sociologists, white male. And
Yes.
we didn't even get all of the other perspectives we needed until what, in the late 40s, 50s? 1940s, 50s, that is.
Yes, Robin, and Dr. Kojo agrees. He says CRT is not a replacement for teaching Black history, right? And then Florence has her hand up, and then Julie Stewart has a question as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to build upon what Tracy said and slightly disagree with Robin and also agree with what Alan said, because in my opinion, regardless of your economic status, if you grow up not very poor and you're white, you've always experienced white privilege.
See, this woman understands the definitions better than the other one.
Having money or not having money, it's the fact that you have white privilege. So if I go to a bank and try to apply for a loan and I get turned down because the color of my skin, and this person who it could be poor, and they walk into a bank and they get the loan. So I personally don't think an everyday.
That is a completely made up scenario. That is we have no evidence that she's ever walked into a bank and has gotten turned down by the color of their skin, and then that same bank made the same loan to a poor white person. That is a completely made up scenario. I want receipts.
Practical application here on day-to-day living as a Black person in this country. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much money you don't have. If you're white, you have that systemic white privilege that Black people and people of color don't have. So that to me is if you feel because you have white privilege, you have the power over me because I am a Black person and these systemic institutional policies and procedures are set up, then that's racism. Then you feel that you're a racist. I mean, you're a racist. That's just my thought.
Okay, Julie Stewart asks, is that kind of like class issues? Like anybody can be poor and powerless, but CRT looks at that?
CRT doesn't look at class
Tracy,
issues.
do you have anything to say about that? And then we'll move on to our next question.
Let's see, let me go back. You said,
yeah.
It's similar to classism because depending on someone's economic status, you can't look down, but it goes deeper than that because a person can have, a Black person or another marginalized group of people can have money and still be looked down upon. I believe that the basis of racism is to, again, going back to the privilege, to make one group of people think that they're better than another group, no matter how much money that group has. So I can have as much education, as much money, own as many properties, but to some people, I will still, I will be followed around stores because of the color of my skin. I might be stereotyped, because another theory I'm looking at is stereotype threat theory, just because of the color of my skin. So yes, it does mimic classism in a way, but it goes beyond that because it's just not about money.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Cody has his hand up.
Right. Cody?
Oh, we're going back to the land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgement part 2.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, 1 second. Let me turn my phone on. There we go. See, I think it's important. Okay. See, I also wanted to bring up like the history of my understanding of my studies of CRT and why there's controversy over it. It seems to be due to this one person named Christopher Rufo. I'm not sure if anybody hears.
Rufo! Anytime anytime Rufo is mentioned, I just had beer go down the wrong pipe. Hang on. Anytime Rufo is mentioned, you get a free bingo square. Yes, Sin knows the rules. Anytime Chris Rufo is mentioned in a presentation, free bingo square. Yes.
Sort of them, but they came up on Fox News in the summer of 2020, complaining about DEI training and asking Donald Trump to issue an executive order to end it
What
in the
a
government.
king.
I'm not sure if any of you remember Trump doing that soon afterwards, but the main issue is that Christopher Rufo has, for some reason, conflated critical race theory with ideas of racial essentialism or naturalism, the belief that
Chris Rufo hasn't conflated anything. Sin got a bingo. Yay for Sin. Yay, Sin. Applause in the chat. Now we're going for blackout bingo, Sin. I don't know. You might hit it today.
Race isn't a social construct, but it's something inherent in people. And instead of acknowledging that that was a mischaracterization, because the works of people like Robert Delgado specifically state that
Richard
CRT
Delgado, not Robert Delgado.
Essentialism, Rufo doubled down and said that CRT essentially was reinforcing racial essentialism, and as he used that in order to create the moral panic that we see today over critical race theory. Robert Oliver, or John Oliver.
I knew it!
Last week's Tonight Show.
I knew it! I was thinking in my head, I was like, this guy watched John Oliver this past weekend. I was literally thinking that as he was talking. I was like, this guy only knows about Chris Rufo because he watched John Oliver Tonight. And as a reminder, I did a reaction to John Oliver's segment. I just appealed my copyright violation on YouTube and I won. So if you want to see the John Oliver segment, go watch my reaction video. It is on the channel right now. I absolutely destroyed John Oliver's argument. I'm very happy with that. But yeah, I knew that he got that from John Oliver.
Held with a summary on CRT and the conflict over it yesterday. So I suggest looking that up too.
Yes, Cody, I'm aware of Christopher Rufo. Joanne Reed interviewed him on her show.
Yes,
and
he destroyed her.
An interesting interview.
He destroyed her. He did so good.
I do follow John Oliver as far as his clips. I used to watch his show all the time, but I kind of just follow his clips now.
Of course, this woman watches Joy Reid.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to move on to our next topic point. Okay. Julie Stewart says, how do you talk to white people who are not in power and aren't receptive to learning this? For instance, she needs to know how to talk to her friends.
Well, I think another tenet of CRT is counter storytelling. And you really don't understand what a person goes through until you are able to walk in their shoes. And there's a lot of research that uses critical race theory as a qualitative measure to use that storytelling. And I just think that, for one, listening to other people's stories outside of her own, and also to be around other people. I mean, sometimes we just have to step out of the box and be open to make friendships with people who look different than us, and just be interested in learning more about that.
That's not what critical race theory is.
Well, I have the luxury of working part-time at a theater in Detroit, a Broadway theater. And our staff has been the most diverse staff you could ever imagine, the most diverse staff. And so I have come to count them as my family more than just my friends. And we have all learned from each other. And it is interesting because the whites who are in our group have asked us. I've literally had some of my white co-workers come to me, to my home, and ask me, how do I do this and how do I talk about that? And they feel comfortable to come and talk to me about these things, you know, for example, what you asked about, Julie, because first and foremost, they know I'm gonna be honest with them. But second, they also know that I'm not offended by their questions because we have a relationship. And I have also encouraged them to be very careful. You can't just walk up to everyone and ask them the questions that you're asking me. as especially other people of color that you may know.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question is, how did you develop an interest in critical race theory?
I did a Google search on the internet.
So I can start with this one. So I didn't develop an interest again until it was probably about 3 years ago, and this was pre-pandemic. So when I started my EDD program at Central, we were part of a cohort.
Oh, I went to college.
Even though it was an online program,
exactly.
Exactly.
I went to college
in person that first semester. And for those of you who may or may not know, Mount Pleasant is where Central is located, which is, even though they have a somewhat of a Black student population, there is not a lot of Black people who live in Mount Pleasant. And at the time, there was a lot of videos going around while Black was what they called it. So like barbecuing while Black, or walking your dog while Black. And at the time, there was a thing that was renting an Airbnb while Black. A lot of stories have been done where different Black people have rented Airbnbs in different scenarios, and the police were called on them, or certain instances that happened. And I have a lot of food allergies or whatnot. And when I went up there, I thought I was gonna, being in education, I thought I was gonna, research stuff about transfer education. Hence why I'm here at the Monroe County Community College.
Listen,
from a 4-year, because I believe that.
Listen to what she's saying. She's actually like, okay, I want to say this. I actually believe that all the people, well, most of the people in this presentation, like, they mean well. They mean well. This woman is literally saying, I went back to get my doctorate and I thought I was going to be researching stuff related to my doctorate. But it turns out that instead of researching stuff related to my profession and my field that I was going to get a doctorate for, they taught me critical race theory. That's literally what she's saying. She was like, I thought I was going to be researching stuff about transfer education and things like that, which would actually be directly related to her career. But instead, they taught her critical race theory.
It all starts at the 2-year. But I rented an Airbnb, and I didn't know anything about Mount Pleasant, and I was nervous at the fact that I would be in this predominantly white neighborhood, and as a Black woman by myself in Mount Pleasant, I didn't know what was going to happen. So when I was in class and we were talking about the different theories, and I asked my professor, I'm like, well,
Incognito, you in New Hampshire right now? Because I just went outside to go to the beer store and it was really nice out. So if you're in New Hampshire right now, you picked a good day to be here.
Do you think that Black students at predominantly white institutions feel race-related stress in an online classroom? And she was like, I don't know. So that was a topic of research. And of course, critical race theory is the basis of how I would go about answering that question. So that's how I became interested in that theory, or in this theory.
Florence, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't, but thank you. I probably do, but.
Naruto says, for tomorrow's Live at 5, considering covering the CBC article about the trucker freedom convoy and use of the word freedom. Naruto, can you, have you posted that in locals? If you post that in locals, I've got a couple good articles for tomorrow, and I can take a look at it to add it to the list, but definitely post that in locals. Oh, fuck, I still need to make the Effed Up News preview post. God damn it, I forgot again. I have a bunch of stuff I need to do after the stream, so I'll make the Effed Up News preview post as well. Thank you, Naruto.
I'll keep my comments to myself. No, what she says is so true, because you guys may have heard this before, back in June of 2020, whenever we first started the HRCs. I just recently moved in 2019 to this neighborhood. And some of you may know I love riding my bike. But I hesitated for 2 weeks because I thought the same thing, Tracy. I thought, and there's some Black families in this neighborhood, don't get me wrong, there's not a lot, but I had that thought in my mind because several years ago in a community in Toledo, Ohio, a Black woman was just walking through a very wealthy white area, and someone called because she was walking through the street and felt that she didn't belong. So that thought stuck in my head, plus just living day-to-day racism. So I thought,
she just was walking down the street and just felt like she didn't belong, and that was proof of racism?
And finally, when I finally did start riding it, I was always looking over my shoulder and making sure, am I okay, this and that. It took a while for me to finally just take a breath and say, okay, I can do this. It doesn't bother me now. But and even still, when I first moved here, I'd walk out to the street to get my mail, and people would say, "Well, how long have you been here?" And I had to legitimize myself by saying, "Oh, I just moved, and also I'm a trustee on the Monroe Community College." And
no, you didn't have to do that stuff. Here's the thing. This is all coming from her head. There was no proof of race. I mean, based on the story that she's told, there was no proof of racism in her community, but she put those stories in her head. Listen, our behaviors reflect our perceptions. Okay? If we have a story in our head saying, I live in a mostly white neighborhood and they're not going to accept me riding my bike around the neighborhood, and I know this other Black person who lives in the neighborhood and she felt uncomfortable walking down the street even though nothing happened to her. If you have that perception in your head, then your behaviors are going to be reflected of the perception that you have in your head. She put those stories in her head. She wasn't in any danger at all. She didn't need to legitimize herself. That was a story that she created, and then she reacted based on that story. She could have very easily put another story in her head. Emphasize said, I will cede my sympathies that race relations aren't advanced up north, and the common sentiment was making fun of country music and degrading POC. All right. Thanks, Emphasize. Appreciate it. Yeah, Patrice says no white people actually hurt her, but she was worried, and that's on her. Yes, that's exactly right. We all have to take responsibility for our own actions and our own choices. No one did anything to her based on the story that she's telling. This was all in her head.
You could see their whole demeanor just relax. It's like, oh, okay, she's okay. But I had to do that for several times. So I understand what Tracy's saying, you know, so this is, it's true. It's real.
Okay, we've got a question, or I think it's more of a statement from Cody. Prejudice plus power definition works better as a definition for institutionalized racism. I think it is important to subcategorize types and expressions of racism in order to be specific. So I think it's more of a statement. And then did someone, I think we kind of talked about it, the difference between racism and prejudice.
Again, as a social scientist, we define prejudice as the attitude that you have, and racism as the full-blown action that you can impart or...
All right, I just want to note that I'm moving on to the pretzel beer. It's time for the pretzel beer. Thank God these are light beers tonight. For happy hour, sometimes I drink heavier beers, but these are light beers tonight. All right. Let's see if the pretzel beer was a good choice. It also has passion fruit and guava. Ooh, look how light it is. I was not expecting the pretzel beer to be light. Oh God, I can smell the passion fruit from here. I really can. All right, let's see. Well, they don't even say this is a beer. They say this is a malt beverage. Pretzel time. Cheers, everyone. That wasn't what I expected that to taste like at all in any way. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's an unexpected beer. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just unexpected. I'm having to process the taste of the beer.
Pain, per se, you can impart on someone because they happen to have the characteristic that certain groups of people find significantly different from other groups.
And to add to that, like, I know someone said, well, can a Black person be racist? And, you know, again, going back to the power, but yes, Black people
definitely doesn't taste like a pretzel.
Asian people, anyone can be prejudiced.
Doesn't even taste salty
against another group because you can discriminate against a certain group. We're saying that, you know, I don't want to sit at that table, or I don't want to be friends with someone, or I think that all people are like that.
Definitely does not taste like a pretzel. It has more, doesn't taste like fondue. Fondue is delicious though. we ever have a locals meetup, we're going to a fondue restaurant. Probably. There are no, I mean, fondue restaurants, fondue is delicious. Naruto says, I posted the article once already in locals, but I can post it again if I have to. No, Naruto, if it's in locals, I'll be able to go back and find it, and I appreciate that. And I'll take a look at it later today. No, the beer isn't bad. It's not a bad beer. It's just unexpected. It wasn't what I expected. Yeah, Melting Pot is legit. Melting Pot, all you need to get at Melting Pot is the appetizer fondue and then the dessert fondue. You don't need any of that shenanigans in the middle. You don't need anything you don't need like hot pot or anything like that. You need appetizer fondue and dessert fondue, and you're good. You're square. It is more fruity. It is. It is. Oh, Derek. Hey, Derek. Good to see you. Mrs. Rogers and myself have been known to indulge in fondues and Melting Pot. God, now I want fondue. God damn it. God damn it.
And that goes back to stereotypes, but the root word of racism is race. And in order to be, you have to have some type of power to use your race as a form of power or a weapon.
I was told I needed to be
don't
rich.
Forget about implicit bias.
Oh,
yes. We tend to cross the terms prejudice, discriminatory racism in with just plain old implicit biases, where we may look at it and be like what you went through, Florence. People have implicit biases. Tracy, what you kind of experience. You know, I tell my students, I have some implicit biases, and we are not always necessarily aware of these implicit biases until they're brought to our attention.
Right.
And I think if we understand that our actions and attitudes towards certain people based on what we think we know about them, like, for example, how many of you all kind of flinch if you see someone with body art? And by body art, I mean tattoos. And when you see that the tattoos are extremely pronounced, how many of us have just looked and been like, ooh, okay, he probably from some rough gang or something?
Is this woman saying she's prejudiced against me because I have very pronounced tattoos? I feel discriminated against. I am a victim. I am oppressed. I am tattoo oppressed.
Or biker, or yeah.
Right. And that is our implicit bias. And I say that because one of our daughters went away to college on the East Coast, came back with tattoos. And for her, we all couldn't figure it out because it's like, why is the square of the family getting tattoos?
Sounds pretty great.
And I tell her, you know, people that can see some of her tattoos do kind of look at her and she's like, yeah, I know. Kind of interesting to see a young Black girl like me with a tattoo, huh? And she enjoys it because it gives her something.
Why can't Black people have tattoos?
Yeah, I mean,
that sounds racist to say that Black people can't have tattoos.
We're walking and we see someone who happens to have a nose ring on, or we see some young people who get into that gothic way of dressing.
How many oppression points do I get for having tattoos? How many oppression points do I get? I used to have my tongue pierced, and then my dentist yelled at me and was like, you're going to knock out your front teeth if you keep that tongue ring. And I was like, no, I want to keep the tongue ring. I committed to that. I got my tongue pierced a week after I turned 18, and I committed to that tongue piercing until I was like 35 or something like that. And then my dentist is like, Carlin, you're going to knock out your 2 front teeth if you keep that fucking thing in your mouth. And I was like, God damn it. And so I had to take it out. But like, how many oppression points do I get for tattoos? I had no idea I was oppressed. No, so oddly enough, getting your tongue pierced, like the actual needle going through your tongue, doesn't actually hurt that much. What sucks is a couple hours later when your tongue swells up to the size of your mouth, and then you can't talk for a week, but eventually it goes down. I'm not 35, I'm 40 now, but I took my tongue ring out a long time ago. But I still have my industrial piercings in my ears that I love. I still have my plugs that I love. I've had my eyebrow pierced, I've had my nose pierced, I've had my lip pierced. I'm not doing piercings anymore. I'm working on a sleeve right now. I've graduated to strictly tattoos. I've gotten too old for piercings.
You know, we all kind of stop and look and be like, let me go the other way. I mean, I can give you guys an example of what happened to me one night, but that's a whole nother story. But we all have our implicit biases.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next question. Is CRT restricted to Black history or does it cover other races?
It definitely covers other races. And just doing my research, a lot of other groups use CRT.
Thank you, gratitude always. I appreciate
give
that.
voice to some of their
I
concerns.
like looking younger than my age.
And it kind of goes back to one of the tenets, which talks about, you know, it's kind of like if you classify, you make everything a black and white issue. And it kind of, if you are able to make everything a black and white issue, other groups don't feel like they're protected, or they feel like they have to choose a side. And more often than not, they go with the majority side. And until something happens, like COVID and Asian Americans, you know, all of a sudden the attention was taken off Black Americans and it was put on Asian Americans, because I have a friend. She was.
They're admitting that it switches. I love it. They're admitting it.
She's Chinese and with her white husband, and she had a woman walk over to her. She was born here in America. Go back to your country. You brought this to our country. So it's just not a black and white issue. There are, you know, Native Americans who can use critical race theory. It's any marginalized group that that can use the tenets of critical race to explain what has happened to them and why it has happened. So that's really what it is. It's
bye, Grandma Nay. Have a good one.
And it's an explanation of that. So no, it's not a black and white issue. And part of the problem in America is that we make everything black and white.
I mean, she is right that the problem in America is we make everything black and white. She is right about that.
But I'm going to read it anyhow. Is CRT meant to be taught at all levels of education, or is it better suited at higher education? Higher levels.
I would say as a college professor and actually in the high school teaching college level introductory courses, you have to be careful. I think it could probably be introduced at a surface level in a junior college class, but as with all the other discussions in sociology, in social science, that it would be saved for a full-blown class as the upper level of college. And like maybe the junior and senior years.
Mm-hmm. Tracy, did you want to add anything to that?
Like I said, I was in it. It depends on the field, of course. Like if you like sociology, education, or law. But in some areas, I think people don't really look at it until they start doing research too. And it depends on when that research interest actually occurs. Sometimes it can be an undergrad, like Robin said, in the junior or senior year, but I think mostly it's used in graduate level coursework outside of law and other social science arenas.
All righty. Okay. My last question before we go into our breakout sessions. In your opinion, why is there so much controversy over CRT?
Great
why has
question.
It become so political?
They're going to make because Chris Rufo.
Culturally speaking, it is the easiest cultural war we can have. Okay. Also, go back to Reconstruction.
I love it when they say the quiet part out loud. Culturally speaking, race is the easiest cultural war we have. That is exactly correct. It's exactly correct, but not for the reason that she thinks it is. So critical race theory is not about race. It is about power. The entire goal of critical race theory, not with people like this. I think that these people, no offense, I think that these people are more useful idiots. I don't think that any of these people are true believers. I think they're mostly useful idiots. Okay? And so what I mean by that is like they're repeating talking points, but they don't actually understand what they're talking about. The language of people who are true believers is very different than the language of people that are useful idiots. So I fundamentally believe that these people believe what they're saying, but I also think they don't really understand it in depth. Now, if they were true believers, they would understand that critical race theory, the only goal of this is to destabilize our systems. It's not about curing racism. It's not about making the world a more fair and just place. It is only about destabilizing the system. So to say that race is the easiest weapon that we have in the culture wars is 100% correct. And race is what they are exploiting, not because they care about racism, because they do not care about racism at all in any way. They only care about exploiting it so that they can gain more power so they can destabilize the system.
What did we see happen after Reconstruction, during Reconstruction? We immediately saw new laws being passed because African-American free slaves were being elected to Congress and initiating laws and passing laws to benefit free slaves. And white male slave owners, previous slave owners, became threatened, felt threatened. They were really literally scared. Oh, they're gonna do to us what we've been doing to them. So we got to pass some laws. When we look at the controversy again, what happened in 2008?
I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but I appreciate the super chat. My English coach is American, black and gay. He lives in the Czech Republic for 20 years. I ask him why here. He says, because no one gives a shit about me. I like it. I appreciate that too. Thank you for the super chat.
We knew it was coming. Reconstruction 2.0. CRT is the new boogeyman for Reconstruction 2.0, and for there to be some type of cultural advantage point from a political perspective to try to at least win more elections. When you break it down to just that bare minimum, you can see that if you take away that boogeyman CRT, what else do you have to argue when you're trying to argue privilege?
Tracy, did you have anything to add to that? Why is it so much controversy over CRT, and why has it become so political?
The reason why is because it is, they're trying to make it political. It's something that has nothing to do with politics. But as Robin said earlier, like if we can ban certain studies or quiet certain voices, it's a way to, quiet voices, I think. Going back to, not, banning, Black History Month. I mean, there was some controversy in Texas a little while ago where a parent had said in the textbook, it, took slavery out. They don't want to talk about slavery anymore. They want to, call slaves migrant workers. So how can you erase history? And if it's just that, it's just a tool to, CRT is not trying to be divisive, like going back to what it is not a tool to be divisive. It is a tool for activism to help certain groups of people and to break down those barriers. So if you attack something that's used to abolish racism, then if you attack it, and it goes, so there's another notion about color blindness. A lot of people say, oh, I don't see color. Color doesn't matter. But if you don't see color, that goes against everything about CRT, because then you're saying that none of these things, these inequities don't exist. None of these things ever happen to people. And if you don't have to acknowledge that this happened, then you don't have to fix it. If you don't acknowledge there's a problem, that's something you don't have
I'm
to
sorry,
fix.
we are not responsible for
do
fixing
away
things
with
that
it,
happened hundreds of years ago.
then,
I'm sorry, we're not.
We're making things the way they were. We're not going to.
She literally she was this close to say we're not making America great again. Did you guys catch that? She was like this close to saying we're not making America great again, or something to that effect. I just want to listen to that part again.
Because then you're saying that none of these things, these inequities don't exist. None of these things ever happen to people. And if you don't have to acknowledge that this happened, then you don't have to fix it. If you don't acknowledge there's a problem, that's something you don't have to fix. So if we do away with it, then we're making things the way they were. We're not we're not going against the grain, so to say.
Alan, before you take the two questions, Florence and Carmela, Cody put in the chat, because of Christopher Rufo and others who have caught on to this mischaracterization of CRT as promoting racial essentialism. Yes, Cody, you are correct.
That's not what Chris Rufo's promoting.
Back in the 90s.
That is literally not what Chris Rufo was saying at all. How do you know the people that just watched John Oliver and that's the first time they've ever heard of Chris Rufo? Slave means Slavic captive. Do I get reparations? Yes. If I get reparations for being for having a tattoo, then you get reparations for being from the Czech Republic.
Gloves learned that if you use certain words in the political dichotomy, you can convince people of a whole lot of things. So they're called buzzwords, if you will. The whole point of the quote buzzwords are so that you can strike fear in people and maintain a certain superiority over certain people. But it still all comes down to trying to win elections. So, Alan, I'll turn it back over to you, and you got three people with their hands up.
Yes, Penny.
And then Alan, when we, for this, could we come to these questions after the breakout rooms? We were gonna send everybody to a breakout room so you can discuss question number 5 further.
They don't do breakout rooms, Patrice, according to Patrice.
Oops, excuse me. We'll get to Florence, Parnella, and Cody's questions right after.
Could we, let's deal with the questions. I'm not sure. I think, let's deal with the questions first.
Okay.
The breakout rooms, I'm not sure how much that will generate since the question was answered, but the breakout rooms was answered by our panelists. So I'm just suggesting that we deal with the questions as we run out of time.
Okay.
Parnella first.
I apologize. I think Florence, her hand was up first. I don't want to get in front of her.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Parnella.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to. I really just want to comment. I don't know if people are aware of the fact that some African Americans suffer from PTSD as a result of dealing with racism. I've spent my entire career doing that, 34 years being pretty much the only one. So when we have these types of discussions,
then you should go to therapy.
Is always racing because I feel overwhelmed by the topic.
Listen,
I think that
I'm going to be very blunt. I have sympathy for people who suffer from actual PTSD, even though I would argue that most of these people do not suffer from actual PTSD. If anything, they suffer from self-inflicted PTSD. But the way you manage PTSD is not complaining about it in a webinar. It's going to therapy. You go to therapy. You go to therapy and you work out your goddamn feelings. I don't mean to sound insensitive, but a lot of people have had stuff happen to them that resulted in PTSD to a greater or lesser extent. When it happened to me, I went to therapy. I nipped that in the bud right quick. And if you're not willing to go to therapy, then you don't really care about treating PTSD.
Ladies have done a great job, but looking at CRT alone, I think kind of doesn't give context to the broader issue. And I would agree with Robin that Reconstruction is a good example of what happens when African American people make progress and are able to begin to prosper and thrive and have freedom in a society that was never created for them to do so.
Well, it seems to me that there are a lot of Black speakers on this call who have some level of power and success within this community college system. So don't tell me the system wasn't built for them when they seem to be doing just fine within the system in which they're operating. And I also can't help but notice that the woman speaking right now has CPA after her name. It is extremely hard to get a CPA. I would not want to work towards a CPA at all. So if she has a CPA, she is doing very, very, very well.
This was a bipartisan effort, by the way, all the politicians. They decided to remove this the troops from because of the Southern Democrats, and so Reconstruction ended.
She doesn't know how to use Zoom, but she has a CPA.
I'm getting feedback. Anyway, I just want to say that I believe this CRT boogeyman, it's not a real thing. It's just a backlash for the progress we've made with having the first African-American president. And now with voter suppression, I think these are just tools. It's part of the backlash of the progress that we make. And I would just like to say two things, and I'm actually going to quote two people. I'm going to paraphrase, and then I'm going to stop talking. Two people, I think, said some things that were very important then and are as important now. Malcolm X said, and I'm paraphrasing, "Only a fool would allow his enemy to educate his children." That is still true today.
Yes, take all your kids out of public schools. Yes, yes. Only a fool would allow the enemy to educate your children. Take all of your children out of public schools now. That is the best argument. That is the best argument. I'm going to write that down. Hang on. Only a fool would allow his enemy to educate their children. MLK. Take all of your kids out of the public schools right now. Best argument for taking your kids out of the public schools that I've ever heard in my life.
End of the movement that he believed he might be delivering his people into a burning house. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Is that it? No.
Okay, I can't hear. I'm not hearing.
She's done. Florence?
Okay.
Yeah, and quickly running out of time. I'm the timekeeper. That's my job today.
Okay, I'm just going to say, I just want to comment and agree with everything these ladies have said. Particularly, it is a very political issue. It's about getting votes. We know that statistics show, I've not seen the 2020 census yet, but we all know that America is browning, and this goal to keep white supremacy in place is even magnified by all this. So all it's political. It's about getting people elected, getting communities riled up to get those very conservative votes in. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being conservative, but this is just another ploy to keep the white supremacy. That's all I wanted to say.
Nothing wrong being conservative, but they're all white supremacists.
Cody,
yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to expand on what was said before about buzzwords. Christopher Rufo himself has admitted to trying to use CRT.
He learned that on John Oliver.
I shared a link to a tweet that he had shared before, but he basically
learned that on John Oliver.
I'll quote it here. He said, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation.
This guy's
and are
obsessed
steadily
with Chris
driving
Rufo.
up negative
I bet this guy
perceptions.
dreams
We will
about
eventually
Chris
turn it
Rufo.
toxic as we put all the various cultural
Has
insanities under that
nightmares
brand
about
category.
Chris Rufo and
The
how
goal is
awesome
to
Chris
have the
Rufo
public read
is and how
something
well he
crazy in the
does.
newspaper and immediately think critical race theory.
Yes.
We have codified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans." And so he pretty much gave away the game plan by saying that in public.
He didn't give away the game plan at all.
I think it's
That is why Joy Reid brought him on to interview him.
No, that was not.
I think it's rather tragic.
That was not why Joy Reid brought him on to interview him. Joy Reid brought him on to interview him because he egged her on Twitter. Let's be really clear about this. Chris Rufo egged Joy Reid on Twitter, and that is why Joy Reid brought Chris Rufo on to interview him. It was a Twitter fight. When Twitter becomes reality. It was not because of Chris Rufo's quotes. It was because Chris Rufo egged Joy Reid on Twitter.
Because I agree with trying to address the issues of believing in a racial essentialism, but he took the wrong course in mischaracterizing critical race theory, and that's why I can't stand for it, because he's spreading misinformation, and I can't stand for it.
Oh, Cody, Cody is so concerned about misinformation that he gets his news from John Oliver and had never heard of Chris Rufo before the segment on John Oliver. I don't know why I had an accent just then. It just came out. You just have to roll with these things.
Thank you for your comments, everybody.
All right.
Alan?
Yes, well, Penny, do you think we have time to go to breakouts or?
Probably not. We try to keep these to an hour, but we would like to continue the conversation. Coach?
Yeah, I think let's see if people have questions or comments.
I really do especially like this one white guy.
Very interesting discussion.
That's wearing a mask all by himself.
I agree with this.
No one else is wearing a mask. Why is the white man wearing a mask?
Some of the people that have not commented.
Rufo is a based king. He is a based king.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand or unmute yourself.
Yep. Okay.
What about our presenters? Do they have any closing comments?
Well, as a new employee of Monroe County Community College, I just want to say that I'm very happy to be a part of this discussion tonight and to be a part of the community. And I hope to see a lot of great things happen here at the college and to be a part of it.
We're happy to have you. Thank you, Tracy.
Cody is like going off on Chris Rufo in the chat.
Thank you again, Penny, for allowing me to participate in this panel. You all know that I do not shy away from panel discussions. I keep a picture up here on my wall with Dr. DeVries, may his soul rest in peace, and another couple of people that we did the panel. I think it was my first panel, and we were talking about Colin Kaepernick. And was it disrespectful to take a knee? And when you think about that in context, how many people got so bent out of shape about him taking a knee? And people who didn't know their history didn't realize Dr. King took a knee. They took knees in civil rights movement.
Patrice, you did a great job. I really appreciate this. Thank you for your service.
I don't know what to tell you. Because I can promise you, taking a knee is nowhere near attacking the Capitol, our center of government. So I've enjoyed my 7 years here at Monroe, and I look forward to 7 more. I'm so glad we waited
till the end.
We hope to have you for many more, Robin.
When I clip out that segment where she said you can't be racist if you're not rich, I'm gonna end it with taking a knee is better than attacking the Capitol, our center of government. I'm making that clip right now. It'll be up on Twitter within half an hour. I'm not joking about that. Oh my God.
Tracy and Dr. Kojo and Penny for letting me be part of this. And any last words from you, Miss Penny?
Me?
Final words to Florence, and there's Laura, and then there's Amy. But Florence, any of you want to speak and close us out? Florence.
Okay, just a couple of comments. First of all, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for having a very candid discussion. It's been very interesting, giving the different perspectives. And I just want to end by saying, we all know that this is Black History Month, and really it should be more than just a month. We should celebrate 365. And I will say, I want to give a shout out to the Robert Duncanson Society. There was a special event this past Saturday that was just outstanding. If you had not had a chance to visit the battlefield, there's a art exhibit from the Black artists from Detroit, and 2 of them came down. The exhibit is fabulous, but 2 of them came down. Our esteemed president was the MC, and I believe Denise Gray is on the call. She's part of the society, and I'm not sure who else is on here who's part of the society. But it was just a wonderful event. You have to go out there. The exhibit will still be there until the end of the month. But it's just fabulous. It was 80 people there, apparently. It was the largest in the theater. We haven't been to the theater. The theater is fabulous. So if you get a chance, go out there to visit, please do so. And there were some other events around the community for Black History Month. So, we should, I hope at one point in time, we get to the point where it's not just relegated to 1 month. You know, there's so much. When I did those profiles last year, the amount of information I didn't know, inventors, artists, you name it, historians, it's just phenomenal. So we have to move forward on this. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Kojo, you have any final thoughts?
I'm sorry.
You have any final thoughts?
Oh, well, thank you all for being here. It's some uncomfortable conversations. We need to have them. And what's important about CREED is that we do have these conversations and we're going to keep it going. So thank you all for being here this evening. This is just the beginning of the CRT conversation, and hopefully we'll move on beyond Black History Month. We're the ones who keep it to a month, folks. We can have Black History any month we want. We can do these events in March, April, May, all year round. We can do it.
You know what? The truth is, they literally can. They literally can. You can teach Black history any month of the year. You don't have to relegate yourself to a month. The thing of it is Black history is not the same as critical effing race theory. These are two different things. I have no problem at all with them teaching Black history every single day of the flipping week. You can teach Black history without teaching critical race theory. I think that's it.
Black history is American history.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fine, just teach
Final
real
word.
history.
Thank you,
Fine,
Ellen,
just teach
for
real
doing
history.
this, and Penny and everybody. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for moderating, Ellen.
Planning committee, stay on for a second. That's
All right. That seems to be it. Well, I want to send a great big thank you to Patrice, because without Patrice, we would not have had that glorious presentation. That was fantastic. So guys, we're going to be doing more of this. Like I said, I actually have in my, let me just show you guys if I have it on the screen. Hang on. Let me show you guys. Where the heck did I have it? I really do want to show this to you guys. This is like, it is epic. If I can find it on my screen somewhere. Oh no, I don't know if I can. But I actually do have a giant spreadsheet of upcoming live critical race theory presentations that we can do for Spy Stream. Thank you to again, I don't want to reveal his name because I don't know if he wants to be credited, but I do have a spy that is putting together a list, and we will make a calendar, and we will be doing live Spy Stream. So if you find a presentation, like it could be from a community college, it could be from a political organization, it could be from an activist network, it could be from anything. If you find a presentation online, like a live presentation, it doesn't matter if it's free, it doesn't matter if it's paid. If we need to pay money for it, then we will crowdfund for it, okay? But if you have something that you want to do for Spy Stream so that we can I prefer to watch them live. We can record them if necessary, but please send that information to me. The best place to send it is to go to my website. You can go to activelyunwoke.com. Here, just let me show you the screen. This is the live events page, but you'll see right up here on activelyunwoke.com, I have an email address. It is activelyunwoke@gmail.com. I also have this fancy contact button, and you can send it in through there. It's just a form, and you can send me all live presentations there. It comes directly to me, and then we can do Spy Stream, and we can do fun stuff like this. Also, as a reminder, tomorrow at 7 p.m., it is pinned to the top of the chat right now. I'm giving a free webinar all about critical race theory, what it actually is, not what those people said it is, because I frankly know way more about critical race theory than like all those people combined. So if you want to learn about it or have your friends and family learn what's going on, I will be showing highly practical examples. I will be showing videos. I will be showing images. I will be showing you how this stuff manifests in the real world. You can find that tomorrow at 7 p.m. over from activelyunwoke.com. And of course, if you appreciate the work I'm doing and you want to join the very best locals on the entire platform, because I absolutely have the very best community on all of locals, you will never, ever, ever convince me otherwise. You can do that by becoming a supporter at kb.locals.com/support. It is in the description below. It is also rolling by on the ticker right now. Now, if you're not quite ready to pay, you can join for free, and I would encourage everyone to join for free. You can join for free at kb.locals.com, but if you want to get some skin in the game, You want to unlock all the features of Locals. You want to get access to our 2 Zoom calls that we do every single week. You want to get access to our book club. You want to get access to our Bitchcraft. You want to get access to all of our special events and our shenanigans and be able to join our Unwoke Army, which they're going to be getting an email about tonight. You want to become a supporter, and you can do that at kb.locals.com/support. You can do it for $5 a month. You can do it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can even make a one-time gift to support the work I'm doing, which I greatly appreciate. All right, guys, I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. on this channel. I go live on my main channel on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5 p.m. On Fridays, we go over to my second channel, Actively Unwoke, and we do something very similar to what we did today. We do happy hour on Fridays. So if you liked what we did today, you could join us for happy hour over on my second channel. That's youtube.com/activelyunwoke. But minimally, I'll be live again tomorrow here, and then we'll do the webinar right after that. Take care, guys. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.